The U.S. Air Force has been trying for more than a decade to retire one of the most powerful reconnaissance drones. And every time, Congress sends it back into the sky. This is the RQ-4 Global Hawk, a satellite that, for some reason, has landing gear attached to it. It flies higher than passenger airliners, remains airborne for more than a day, and can track a single target for hours while its operators are thousands of miles away. It would seem to be an indispensable machine. So why does the military want to send it to a museum? And why won't Congress let them? The RQ-4 Global Hawk sometimes makes you want to call it a satellite that, for some reason, had landing gear attached to it. It operates at an altitude of 60,000 feet, looks out across hundreds of thousands of feet, can stay airborne for more than a day, and transmit intelligence data to operators sleeping on the other side of the planet. But unlike a satellite, the Global Hawk can be sent exactly where it's needed right now, have its route changed in mid-flight, and be made to watch a single area for hours. Then why is the U.S. military dreaming of the end of this amazing drone's career? And why does Congress regularly save the unmanned aircraft from its final flight to a museum? The Northrop Grumman RQ-4 Global Hawk has one specification that explains what kind of aircraft it is more loudly than any advertising brochure or presentation ever could. A wingspan of 130.9 feet, greater than that of the enormous 4-engine Boeing KC-135 Stratotanker, greater than that of the passenger Boeing 737-800, and only slightly smaller than the wingspan of the passenger Boeing 767-300. What's funny is that the KC-135's maximum takeoff weight reaches 146 metric tons, while the Global Hawk's is just 14.6 metric tons. So the two aircraft occupy almost the same width on the apron, yet one is 10 times heavier than the other. And this is not a curiosity or the result of gigantomania. The Global Hawk was literally built around a single task, turning fuel into hours spent high above the Earth. Its long, slender wing, relatively light airframe, and single fuel-efficient Rolls-Royce F137RR100 turbofan engine producing 7,600 pounds, 34 kilonewtons of thrust are not there for speed or maneuverability. They allow the drone to fly halfway across an ocean, spend hours observing a vast area, and return home without refueling. That's why the story of the RQ-4 is especially revealing today. It proved to be an exceptionally successful reconnaissance aircraft for the war it was built for, and at the same time poorly suited to the war the Pentagon now fears. At the beginning of the program, the Global Hawk was not even called the RQ-4. Under DARPA's high-altitude unmanned aircraft projects, it was known as Tier 2 Plus and was developed by Teledyne Ryan Aeronautical, now part of Northrop Grumman. The original requirement sounded insanely simple. The aircraft had to fly about 3,000 nautical miles, conduct reconnaissance in the target area for 24 hours, and then cover another 3,000 nautical miles to return to base. Alongside it was a completely different project, the low-observable RQ-3 Dark Star, or Tier 3-, intended to penetrate areas where serious air defenses were operating. Unlike the Global Hawk with its conventional configuration and large radar cross-section, which was intended for low and medium threat environments, as a result, DARPA had two opposite answers to the same problem. Dark Star sacrificed range and endurance for stealth, ending up with a range of roughly 500 nautical miles to the reconnaissance area and about 8 hours on station. The Global Hawk, by contrast, sacrificed stealth for maximum endurance. This is one of the central paradoxes of the entire program. The RQ-4's vulnerability to modern air defenses is not a suddenly discovered design flaw. It was built into the UAV's original concept and officially acknowledged as early as the 1990s. The military simply assumed at the time that another aircraft would exist for the most dangerous airspace. But Dark Star was ultimately canceled, while the Global Hawk remained. The first RQ-4 took to the air in February 1998, and by November 2001, experimental aircraft were already being used in real overseas operations, which was impressively fast for a system that had begun as an advanced concept technology demonstration. The Air Force ultimately received 45 Global Hawks of various blocks. The RQ-4's length, despite the magnificence of its wings, is just 47.7 feet, producing on the one hand a strange proportion, a short fuselage, an enormous slender wing, and one small jet engine mounted on top. On the other hand, it's practically the ideal shape for a machine whose job it is to climb into the stratosphere and remain there for more than a day. The empty UAV weighs about 6.78 metric tons, yet its maximum fuel capacity is 7.85 metric tons, and its maximum payload is about 1.36 metric tons, which clearly hints at just how heavily the Global Hawk's engineers prioritized range and endurance. Its volume and mass are devoted primarily to kerosene, not engines, weapons, or a cockpit. Over nearly 30 years of service, the name Global Hawk is referred to several different aircraft. Block 20, for example, was initially focused on imagery collection. Some of the UAVs were later converted into RQ-4Bs equipped with beacon, battlefield airborne communications node, high-altitude communications relays. Block 30 became a true multi-intelligence reconnaissance platform. Electro-optical systems, infrared equipment, synthetic aperture radar, and SIGINT equipment worked extremely well together beneath the skin of a single aircraft, but in 2022 the U.S. Air Force removed them from operational units. Today, however, the face of the RQ-4 is Block 40. Its main instrument is MR-RTIP, Multi-Platform Radar Technology Insertion Program, with an ASA, Active Electronically Scanned Array Radar, that allows it to simultaneously generate SAR, Synthetic Aperture Radar, imagery of stationary objects, and uses GMTI, Ground Moving Target Indicator mode, to detect and track moving targets. In addition, in its current configuration, it can also track cruise missiles. SAR is particularly interesting because radar doesn't need sunlight, and cloud cover is far less of a problem for it than an ordinary camera. Through the UAV's movement and the processing of a sequence of reflected signals, a large virtual antenna is created, allowing detailed radar imagery of the terrain to be produced from an enormous altitude. GMTI solves a different problem. Instead of a beautiful photograph, commanders receive a detailed picture of movement, where vehicles appeared, which direction they're moving in, and where they stopped. If observation continues for long enough, individual returns turn into routes and patterns. In this sense, the Global Hawk looks even more valuable than a satellite. While the latter images an area and continues along its orbit, the RQ-4 can remain over the target for hours. Incidentally, in the case of this UAV, unmanned does not mean thinks independently. The system includes a separate launch and recovery element responsible for takeoff and landing, while the mission control element manages the main part of the mission. The standard remote crew includes pilots and a sensor operator, and the route and intelligence collection plan can be changed in flight. To illustrate, in 2026, the RQ-4s of the 4th Reconnaissance Squadron are physically located at Yokota Air Base in Japan and handle the launch and recovery of the drones, while the primary mission is flown by the crew of the 348th Reconnaissance Squadron at Grand Forks Air Base, North Dakota. In other words, the cockpit and the aircraft itself can easily be separated by thousands of miles. Another feature of the RQ-4 development program that many analysts forget today was its strict cost target. DARPA wanted to keep the cost of a production UAV at $10 million in 1994 dollars. In a sense, cost could even be called a technical specification. The developers were given an unusual amount of freedom, but they were required to fit the insane range and reconnaissance equipment within specific budget limits. What could possibly go that wrong? An estimate from 1998 already put one of the first production Global Hawks at $14.8 million in the same 1994 dollars, where the overrun win is especially revealing. Of the additional $4.8 million, about $3.5 million went toward the aircraft structure, including $1.9 million specifically for redesigning the wing to achieve the required range and endurance. That same gigantic wing was already proving expensive for taxpayers at the moment it appeared. As the demonstrator was transformed into a full-fledged military system, its cost increased by tens of times. In its analysis of the fleet, the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, used an average procurement cost of about $239 million per aircraft in 2020 dollars. And although directly comparing this figure with the original $10 million is incorrect because of the enormous time gap, what was included in the cost, the production batch and the configuration, the scale of the transformation from a cheap experimental UAV into a strategic reconnaissance system is impressive even today. At the same time, operating it's not exactly expensive in itself. According to the CBO's calculation for 2014 to 2018, recurring costs amounted to about $18,700 per flight hour. Including procurement and life cycle costs, the figure was about $35,200. And during that period, each RQ-4 flew an impressive average of 945 hours per year. So the Global Hawk's problem today doesn't come down to a simple, it's too expensive to fly. But when it comes to altitude, things turned out, to put it mildly, badly. The point is that altitude was long one of the best means of protection for reconnaissance aviation, but the Global Hawk was created at a time when 60,000 feet alone was already insufficient against a full-fledged air defense system, and over the following decades, the situation only grew worse. The best-known lesson came in June 2019 when an Iranian surface-to-air missile destroyed an American RQ-4A BAMS-D, Broad Area Maritime Surveillance Demonstrator, over the Strait of Hormuz area. It's important to clarify that this was not today's U.S. Air Force Block 40, but a Navy-operated maritime demonstrator from the Global Hawk family, a predecessor to the RQ-4C Triton concept. The United States stated that the drone had been over international waters, while Iran claimed the opposite. But the technical conclusion doesn't change with the dispute over coordinates. A large high-altitude aircraft was detected, tracked, and hit. The RQ-4 is physically difficult to hide in principle. Its impressive wingspan, conventional tail, air intake, engine, and comparatively traditional layout. This is not an aircraft designed around minimal radar observability. It flies high, but not especially fast. It's not a fighter, it carries no weapons, and it's simply not prepared for an aggressive missile evasion maneuver. Does that mean the RQ-4 is useless today? Not at all. In an uncontested environment, its usefulness remains simply enormous. You just have to distinguish between two completely different scenarios. In airspace controlled by an adversary's modern long-range air defenses, fighters, passive detection systems, and electronic warfare, sending the RQ-4 deep forward is extremely risky. Its enormous endurance ceases to be an advantage if the enemy gets many hours to detect it and organize an interception. But outside the engagement zone, over neutral waters, allied territory, or in conflicts with limited air defenses, the Global Hawk remains an almost ideal carrier for heavy sensors. It doesn't get tired, doesn't require the crew inside the aircraft to be rotated, can keep a chosen area under observation for a full day, and can move to places that no satellite orbit passes over at the required moment. Moreover, an aircraft that supposedly already has 1 foot in retirement has just received a new permanent home in one of the world's most important regions. At the end of May 2026, the U.S. Air Force began the permanent relocation of the RQ-4s of the 4th Reconnaissance Squadron from Andersen Air Force Base, Guam, to Yokota Air Base near Tokyo, directly linking the move to the need for persistent intelligence collection across the Indo-Pacific region. The relocation concerns 3 aircraft, the first of which arrived at Yokota back in late May, and by July, Japanese military specialists were already being shown the RQ-4 station there. The result is an almost comical situation. The Air Force explains why the Global Hawk is unsuitable for a future war against a peer adversary. Congress does not allow it to be retired quickly, and Pacific Air Forces, meanwhile, are permanently moving it to Japan because the current need for long-duration reconnaissance is simply too great. After all, war's not only about penetrating directly over air defense positions. Maritime spaces, airfields, ship routes, and an adversary's general activity can all be monitored from a distance. Its enormous altitude and endurance become useful again as long as the RQ-4 is not forced to perform the mission for which Dark Star was intended in the 1990s. Some retired Global Hawks have received an even stranger second life. Under the Pentagon's Grand Forks Sky Range program, early Block 20 and Block 30 RQ-4s are being converted into Range Hawk flying laboratories for testing hypersonic missiles and other advanced high-speed systems. Whereas the reconnaissance RQ-4 spent most of its life looking down at the ground, the Range Hawk is equipped with systems that track a test vehicle flying above it and collect telemetry. The reason the Global Hawk was pulled into all this action is quite prosaic. Traditionally, such tests require instrumented ships to be positioned along the flight path in advance. They're expensive, slow, and confined to the sea. A drone with 30 hours of endurance can be sent to the required point much faster. The first 3 converted old Block 10 aircraft have already proven the concept in practice. In 2023, they helped support 2 tests over the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans only 10 days apart. The program was subsequently given another 24 retired Block 2030 aircraft for further conversion. And in May 2026, the story continued. Northrop Grumman received a contract worth approximately $325.5 million for further development of the Range Hawk and its universal payload architecture to support hypersonic system testing. So some Global Hawks will outlive the combat RQ-4 and help create the weapons of an era that itself made the old reconnaissance aircraft too vulnerable. What about its successors? If you look for the logical continuation of the RQ-4, the first thing that comes to mind is the Northrop Grumman RQ-180. And although the U.S. Air Force still refuses to admit that it exists, the first reports of it came from an Aviation Week investigation, which reported as far back as 2013 on a large, secret Northrop Grumman drone and called it the RQ-180. Yet, despite the veil of secrecy, the logic behind this aircraft is quite transparent and looks like an answer to the RQ-4's main weakness. If the Global Hawk is a HALE, high-altitude, long-endurance reconnaissance aircraft optimized for aerodynamic efficiency and endurance, then the RQ-180 is supposed to solve the same problem, but with the requirement that it survive in contested airspace. Hence, incidentally, the expected large flying wing configuration, the absence of conventional tail surfaces, smoothly blended surfaces, engine shielding, and careful management of electromagnetic wave reflection. At the same time, the enormous wing preserves the aerodynamic efficiency needed for long-duration, high-altitude patrols. The spring of 2026 suddenly gave the public what may be the best look at the program in the entire history of its non-existence. In March, a very large, dark flying wing aircraft was photographed near Greece's Larissa Air Base. A local outlet initially mistook it for a B-2, but the shape of the trailing edge, the proportions, and other details clearly didn't match the spirit. For that reason, many military publications reasonably concluded that this mysterious aircraft was the non-existent RQ-180. Interestingly, after its accidental appearance, the aircraft didn't disappear and was repeatedly seen around the base for roughly 4 weeks. In early April, videos appeared in which the unusual UAV could be seen even more clearly. After that, TWZ even suggested that its wingspan may be no smaller than the Global Hawk's impressive 130 feet. The timing of its appearance also led to speculation that the secret platform had been used in connection with U.S. operations against Iran, although we're unlikely to receive official information about its routes and missions, nor did the Pentagon confirm its type, designation, or mission. And yet, no one denied the photographs. If the identification is correct, a program that had been kept almost entirely behind a veil of secrecy for more than a decade is already far beyond the stage of an attractive prototype. The story seems to have come full circle. 30 years ago, the Pentagon was simultaneously building the long-range, enormous, and conspicuous Global Hawk for less dangerous airspace and the small, stealthy Dark Star for the most dangerous airspace. Then one branch disappeared, while the other became extraordinarily successful. Now the requirements have converged at a single point once again. An aircraft is needed with the Global Hawk's range and endurance and the penetration capability once promised by Dark Star. If what's called the RQ-180 really is this exact combo, then its main characteristic is not its mysterious wingspan or presumed ceiling at all. It's much simpler than that. The RQ-180 must spend a full day in places where the RQ-4 today would not survive even an hour. What do you think? Will the U.S. Air Force manage to send the RQ-4 into a well-earned retirement in the 2030s, or will it still live to see the RQ-180 flying wingtip to wingtip beside it? Be sure to tell us in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you always stay connected. See you soon.